Welcome to Weather to Watch. As I discussed in the last issue of this couple of days ago, we've got these little clipper systems that are producing snows repeatedly and over the same areas that have gotten quite a bit of it here over the last couple of weeks. We'll talk about that and how long the cold weather will remain entrenched before a more moderate pattern can begin to take over. Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We'll start off like I a lot of times do, looking at the visible satellite loop from earlier here on a Friday afternoon. A couple of notable features, a pretty strong jet stream signature right there, and also the bear claw. That's what I call clouds that come in like this over the top of a ridge. You can still see the snow cover here, even though there are real clouds embedded in that somewhere, but you can kind of make out the things that aren't moving. That's the snow. And there was snow over parts of Missouri, but a lot of that has melted away up there in the northeastern part of the state as the sun has come back to many areas. If we take a look at the 500 millibar flow kind of overlaid on top of that, we see this broad trough of low pressure here. So this is a long wave. There are little short waves kind of going through this, but generally speaking, this is the long wave trough right here, the larger scale, continental scale type of dipping of these surfaces. And then you can kind of see the ridging here and how the winds are kind of curving over the top of that, and the clouds give that away. This is a model look at what it'll be at 9 o'clock tonight, and pretty accurate, actually. It's a continuous parade of cool fronts, and this has been the case here and will be for a little longer yet. Here comes another one across Wisconsin and Iowa. Kind of a slow-moving, almost stalled-off front in northern parts of Florida with a low off the coast, but that's enough to produce a little bit of precipitation on its back end here. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our snow update. Well, broadly, we have winter weather advisories. Generally, that's for less snow, and it is very typical to see these in areas where you get accumulating snow, maybe up to about 4 inches. They'll issue a winter weather advisory. These are all National Weather Service products. Then the pinkish color is winter storm warnings for the higher mountainous areas of the west. And we'll focus in more on that. That's that clipper system here in a minute. I also did want to just divert quickly out to the east on the back end of that LOA winter weather advisory. Not for very much longer, but it does include Washington, D.C. and Richmond and all the way down to Greensboro, North Carolina. Now let's take a look at that latest in a series of little clipper snow systems. This one is just not quite as intense as the very first one that started all this, that dumped 1.5 feet of snow in Iowa. Then if you recall, the second one after that had about the same intensity as this one. I'll show you the snow forecast in a minute, but if we track where this low goes, this is 6 p.m. Saturday. Tomorrow, it's just north of the Omaha area. And then by 6 a.m. Sunday, it's centered up over west central Illinois, so it would have tracked like this. And you can see the precipitation type is mostly snow out ahead of that and northeast of it a little bit. And then if we go ahead to 6 p.m. Sunday, the low itself, the center of which kind of dissipates, it's kind of hard to find, as yet another bubble of high pressure moves in behind that. So what are we talking here? This is the National Weather Service opinion of snowfall. So up to 1/2 foot in some areas there, north of Des Moines, with central and northern Iowa and southern Minnesota under the gun for this latest snow. Remember, the low kind of fades away, so the snow totals really have trouble leaving Illinois here. And we'll take a look at the other models, see what they say. This is the EPS. This is the ensemble Euro model. It's a lot less enthusiastic about snow totals, barely getting them up to 3 inches there along the Iowa-Minnesota border. Meanwhile, the American version of that, the GEFS, is a little closer to what the Weather Service is saying. Remember, they had 6-inch totals there, and they're getting pretty close to that in about the same geographical area. And not surprisingly, these are in effect beginning, I think the winter storm warning starts at 6 o'clock Saturday evening, which is about right, with the winter weather advisory surrounding that. So Des Moines in the winter weather advisory, as is Sioux City and Sioux Falls. And then the winter storm warning includes Waterloo and those areas of north central Iowa indicated in the pink color there. If we look at other snow hazards, this is a trend 13th through the 19th. This is getting into the middle part of December. We still see lake effect snows that you can just tell by the way they hug these southeastern and eastern sides of all the Great Lakes and into the Appalachian Mountains. That's exactly what we're looking at. And then these are just mostly mountain snows. And one thing I do want to show you here is something that kind of points to precipitation totals. Let's talk about that. All right, I don't use this a whole lot, but this is the GFS model, and we're looking at precipitable water or PWAT anomalies, right? And press that, at the next party you're at. Once I explain what it is. So precipitable water is what that stands for, and it's really just the amount of water in a column of air. Theoretically, if you could just wring it of all of its moisture and put it in a rain gauge, that's how much water you would get. And what you're looking at here is the anomaly. So in other words, how far does this deviate from what you expect to see? So where you see the green areas and the blue areas, all that explanation is to get the one phrase you've probably heard before, and that is atmospheric rivers. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that in the media. That's what these are. These are just streams of enhanced moisture. They don't always mean heavy precipitation, but boy, a lot of times that is exactly what it means. And you'll notice one feature about these oftentimes is that they kind of stay in one place. So you see the northwestern U.S. More or less keeps getting hit by that green kind of bluish color. This is over the next 5 days. It just keeps looping. And you see how it kind of makes inroads into Washington and Oregon there, takes a break, and then comes back a little bit wider, and then really intense by the day 4 or 5. And then also the anomaly works the other way. So really dry atmospheres are shown by that kind of brown color there. That's in the southeast. And if you let that loop repeat one more time, you still see kind of a mini river there across the northern Gulf of Mexico and also into Florida. So with that in mind, let's take a look at 2 precipitation forecasts. This is for the next 5 days. And this, again, shows that that atmospheric river is indeed enhanced along a stationary front. Remember, I showed you the front on the surface map. So over the next 5 days, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain across northern Florida, and probably less than 2 inches in Georgia and the Carolinas, and not too much in southern Florida. And remember, there was one of these in the northwestern U.S. too, and boy, this means a lot more business. Now, you have to keep in mind, there is orographic lifting here, so when these moisture plumes come ashore, they're lifted over the in western side of these mountain ranges, and a lot more precipitation can get wrung out in theory. So that's how you see these 6-inch totals. And again, this is when they forecast total precipitation, this is not accounting for snow. This is, if it's liquid, we leave it liquid. If they think it's going to be snow, melt it first and then give you the answer here. So these are mountain snows is what really I'm trying to say, with rain expected in Seattle and the lower valleys. If we look at the precipitation 6 to 10 day outlook, there's actually a drying trend across the southern half of the U.S. beginning Thursday of next week and going through Monday. And meanwhile, you can kind of see these systems coming ashore again on that stream and enhancing the precipitation in Montana. That, with a cooler weather pattern still expected across this part of the country, at least for a little bit, that might equate to snows, especially on this end of things during that time period. The latest weekly is out for the EPS, and this is basically the 500 millibar flow averaged over 7 days and the mean of the model. So what you are seeing are trends over an entire week. And when a 500 millibar ridge develops in this mean area, what you start to see is this coloring right here, this orange coloring, and that is a ridge building anomalously, meaning these lines are curving northward more than they normally would through the average of that 7 day period. The opposite is true where you see these purple and blue colors. That means there's troughing here. So the correlation is almost always exact with temperatures. So I expect warm temperatures here, cool temperatures here. Let's take a look at the same 7 day period and look at the surface temperature anomalies, and bam, there it is. Pretty warm from Nebraska and Kansas westward, with really above normal temperature anomalies in Wyoming and Colorado and Idaho, even parts of Oregon and Washington, and still cool across the Great Lakes, Minnesota, Iowa, and especially getting into New England, starting to shift a little more northeast. And if we look at the snowfall rates, they are very predominant, again, in the lake effect snowbelt areas, but you'll notice, generally speaking, there's just kind of a blue haze right here. So again, there's the possibility of these clippers moving through here and dumping mostly light snow. They're generally not good at producing a lot. An excited one, like the one I showed you several seconds ago, is a half-foot snow. That would actually be pretty good for a clipper type system. Let's take a look at the temperature trends. We'll take it every other day. Here's Saturday, so if you see blues and greens, it's below normal. A high of only 6 degrees in northern North Dakota. on Saturday. Meanwhile, 64 for Vegas this time of year is actually kind of balmy, and these 80s in Florida are a little bit above normal as well. And you can see the extent of the cool air here. Going ahead to Monday, the nation is divided in half, with the eastern half cool, and the epicenter of that runs from Illinois and Indiana up into Maine, including New York State. The west is balmy, very warm in the interior of Oregon and Washington. And then on Wednesday of next week, the high temperature anomalies, Florida looking a little cool with that rain. Again, that atmospheric river. Another cool front looks evident right there, as highs are only in the teens in parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota. But generally speaking, the nation is beginning to warm up after being cool here for several weeks on end. That trend can be seen in the extended forecast, 6 to 10 day forecast, which is the day right after the map I just showed you. Very high confidence of the areas around Vegas and Utah of being above normal, and very anomalous, very, very cool air from Wisconsin sweeping over into Pennsylvania. And if we just kind of tweak this ahead 2 more days to day 8 through 14, same pattern, but it's beginning, the cold air is beginning to relax a little bit and shift more northeast, while the warmth, the confidence of it being warm diminishes, but the location of it is about the same. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.